The Nutcracker in 3D. Now, during the credits sequence, we are treated to some nice close-up shots of the ornaments on a tree that slowly rotate into frame. And from there, we go to a nice opening shot of an ice rink that could pass for being actually filmed in 3D. And maybe it even is, for all I know. And then, well, that's about it for the 3D experience. The vast majority of the rest of this movie is a clumsy attempt at 3D conversion. It's occasionally good, sometimes acceptable, but mostly it's shockingly bad. Now, in 2010, 3D conversion was still a frontier, so I guess options were few and expensive. But so much of this has reduced the image to mashed potatoes. This shot, for example, is just 3 circular bumps, and there's no background at all. And that's what you will be mostly subjected to, a variety of bumps and dips. It's like watching the movie projected on a curtain in the wind. It just wobbles and warps, punches in and out. It's terrible. Though, at least I'll say they at least tried to make something of it. Believe it or not, there are far worse attempts at 3D out there. And this, they at least try and put the bumps in the right places. Yay. Now, as I watched, I did begin to notice that the quality of the 3D had a direct relationship to how much of the scene was CGI. It appeared to me that where possible, they at least had the decency to apply their hammer to the composite layers and reassemble them in such a way that gives a more proper 3D illusion. This shot has the carriage properly cut out, and likely this was because it was in front of a green screen and the entire street is CGI, making it easy to separate. And once the carriage leaves, you can see everything behind it is just pushed and warped around. This showcase moment in the middle of the film, which is something of a spirit dance around the tree, actually does work well. From what I can tell, it has about 4 different elements that each received their treatment and were recombined. And if you look closely, you can still see they're still pretty crude, but at least the layering serves an illusion of depth. Also, some pure CGI moments, like a close-up of the dollhouse, actually do look good. Things are cut out properly. But when everything else in the scene is a wonky, bubbly stereo mess, it's difficult to enjoy. And it's actually quite frustrating when every shot presents your eye a different type of challenge. It's all in all, it's actually very disappointing. I was looking forward to this. The Nutcracker is one of those stories that continually is being reinvented and remade. As a kid, it fascinated me. Because no matter the version that I happened to watch, I could never follow the story. The visuals were always interesting, but really I had no idea what it was all about and could never really tell you what was going on. So this time I was determined to break the code. My goal was to pay attention and actually try and follow the story. And the result? Well, using modern comparisons, I'd say it's a cross between the Lego Movie and Toy Story. It's a kid's imagination of what the world inside a Christmas tree might be like, with the occasional hint that the imagined world is loosely based on reality. It's a wild ride, and there are several outstanding actors, sometimes too outstanding. The father, in fact, seems to be almost bipolar, pouncing between a shouting rage and sweetly calm. There's some very nice practical makeup for an unrecognizable John Turturro. And also, there's a monkey man who looks like he came right out of Planet of the Apes. Story-wise, I found it didn't really flow well at all. It felt like a story that a kid was making up while they played under the tree. It goes like, this happened, and then that, oh, and then this thing. Everything just sort of has a feel of coming out of nowhere, but that is what the premise is, so maybe that's intentional. It's a beautiful movie for sure, and because of that, it's probably one of the rare instances where I would really only want to watch the flat version of this. This version of stereo does not enhance the beauty of the photography. You know, when you get something like a cheap horror movie or just some throwaway comedy, it's a little more forgivable to have this type of stereo applied, as I'm not nearly as invested in the visuals as I am here. This attempt at 3D is just distracting and comes between the viewer and the movie. I suppose it might serve as a historical footnote for the early days of 3D conversion, but it's really too bad they just didn't film it in 3D. I'd like to imagine that someday they could go back and redo this with modern methods. There are shots that have the potential to look really good in stereo. Oh well, I'll just have to use my imagination.